I've just pimped my ride with 5 of the coolest gadgets. Now, if you're watching this film hoping I'm going to review some gadgets to make your bike go any faster or look any cooler, I'm afraid you're going to be sorely disappointed, because by the time you reach my age, you're only really interested in 2 things, which is comfort and ease of use. And in fact, if you're a lycra-wearing cyclist, I should warn you that the following film contains gadgets that some viewers may find distressing. Chief amongst those is probably my first gadget, which is the Kinect XR seat post suspension system. I first saw this thing advertised on Amazon as the body float, which I think is a bit of a misnomer actually. I think it should be called the arse float, because that's exactly what it does. It just replaces your normal seat post. You pop your old saddle on the top, put it in the bicycle frame there, and then, as you can see, this big spring here absorbs the bumps in the road. And as it says on the box, goodbye rough, hello smooth. But is it any good? Well, we'll find that out a little bit later. So what's next in the toy cupboard? Ah, yes, it's the Fidlock smartphone handlebar mounting system. Now, most smartphone handlebar mounts have a system which means you have to kind of lock them into place, which I find a bit of a fiddle. This thing's genius. It uses 2 parts, this suction cup here, which also has a magnet in it. That goes on your handlebar like that. And then it also comes with a phone case, which also has a magnet in it, I believe. And you pop your phone in there, and then you just drop it on the cup like that. But will it stay on the handlebars? Well, we'll find that out when we go for that bike ride a bit later on. In the meantime, what's the next gadget in the cupboard? Ah, yes, it's the trigger bell, the safer bike bell. Now, this is a really interesting idea, actually. It's designed to overcome a flaw that's kind of inherent in other bicycle bells, which is that the ringing mechanism is on the top of the handlebars, and that means you have to lift your thumb above the handlebar, and it's kind of difficult to do that at the same time as braking. It probably means you can't brake quite as hard as you would do if your thumb was left where it would normally be. So you end up looking at the person you're about to plough into thinking, shall I warn them or brake? Brake, warn, brake. Anyway, this thing gets over that because it mounts on the handlebar like that using a rather clever reusable tie, and then the trigger mechanism is just right there where your thumb would normally be. But will it be loud enough to warn people of my impending collision with them? Well, we'll find that out a little bit later. So now, my final gadget, which is from a household name, if you live in China, that is. It's the Heizaki bike rear view mirror. This thing is designed to overcome a problem that I think will be rather more commonplace amongst older people like me. Because once you hit the age of 60, you're about as supple as a lamppost, and it becomes harder and harder to look more than about 20 degrees left or right, and certainly not all the way over your shoulder without grunting like a centre court tennis player. Well, this thing comes with a mount that goes on your handlebars, like so. It's very quick and easy to fit. And then this little TV screen mounts on it like that. There we go. And then it comes with this camera here. Now this should sit on the back of your seat post here, and again it's got a similar mount to pop it on the back of the seat post. But unfortunately I've got a little bit of a problem with that, because my seat post is directly behind my bike battery, so all I'm going to get is a view of a battery. So instead I've got to find something to mount it on the rear of the, well, the battery mount, wherever that, there we go. And I'm going to use this rather ingenious invention here called a rubber band. So that goes on there. And then all I have to do is feed the cable up the side of the bicycle, along to the top there, and then plug it into the camera there and switch it on. And bingo! And that looks pretty bright to me, although we'll have to wait and see whether it's bright enough to see in harsh sunlight and clear enough to make out my friends behind me. Meantime, one last gadget. Although this isn't really a gadget, it's more of a piece of clothing, albeit quite a high-tech piece of clothing. It's called the ProViz 360. And as the name suggests, it's a highly visible bit of kit. In fact, I think it's the most reflective thing I've ever owned. Except perhaps for the suit I bought a few years ago to go to a funeral in. Anyway, that is incredibly reassuring, particularly if you're wending your way home from the pub late at night and you forgot to turn your bike lights on. There is literally no way anybody's going to miss you wearing one of these, or even hit you. Anyway, obviously it's too light at the moment to demonstrate this properly, but I'll show you that a bit later on. So let's go and check out the rest of these things and see how well they work. Off we go. So the first thing to say is that this arse float, by which of course I mean the Kinect XR, is supremely comfortable. I mean, compared to a normal saddle, it's like riding along on a magic carpet. Now, in fact, I've had mine for a couple of years now and I absolutely love it. Can't imagine having a bike without one. But for today, I thought we'd take it somewhere a little bit more demanding than a normal road. So I'm going to turn into a field round the corner from my house. Here we go. It's still very comfortable. It's taking the bumps very nicely. Well, how about if I go across that field there, turn left here, and do you know what? This is an absolute breeze. My arse is very comfortable going across a ploughed field. It really is soaking up all the bumps. I've only ever had one problem with the Kinect XR, which was that after about a year, one of the bolts holding the saddle in place sheared off. I think it's because the bolts are at a slightly oblique angle, which puts them under a little bit more lateral load, particularly when carrying an arse as big as mine. And the other thing this field test does is it shows just how well the Fidlock mobile phone holder keeps the telephone stuck to the handlebars. It's like a bloody limpet. It's not going anywhere. Well, back on a normal road, thank God. Now, as far as the Fidlock here goes, there are only two small downsides. The first is that the case that you put it in stops MagSafe and MagSafe accessories from working properly. I have to say, it hasn't really bothered me. I prefer to charge my phone using a cable anyway. The second disadvantage, well, not disadvantage, slight flaw, is that after a period of time, I think about a year, the sides of mine start coming away from the base. It doesn't actually stop it working as designed, and I have to say it hasn't really bothered me. And the advantage of being able to just drop my phone onto the handlebars as easily as that far outweighs those two small little problems. The rear view mirror, or camera, is really bright and easy to see, even in bright sunshine. Now, I joked earlier about how this is a gadget for older people, and sure enough, it's bloody brilliant for deaf old buggers like me, who wouldn't hear a 24-wheeled articulated lorry coming up behind them till it spat me out the other side. But actually, it's got a really wide field of vision on the camera at the back, and if I was cycling in a busy city like London, I'd be very glad of one of these, regardless of my age. Battery life? Well, I ran it on my desk and it went for about 7 hours before the battery ran dry, but that was without the camera attached. And once I plugged that in, it does seem to be going down a little bit faster. So I think you might struggle to get, I don't know, 5 hours out of it. It does also have night vision, but I'm not entirely sure how useful that would be, other than for spotting marauding gangs of phone muggers coming up behind you. And lastly, I'm not sure how waterproof it is. It does have a rubber grommet over the charging port, but I wouldn't want to test that. Next up, the trigger bell bicycle bell. The thing about bicycle bells is that you don't actually want one that's too loud, because people tend to get thoroughly pissed off if you scare the shit out of them with a foghorn. That's quite loud enough. Next, the ProViz reflective jacket. And to show you just how reflective this thing is, I'm now going to take it for a spin in the dark. And Mrs. Gadget is going to follow me in the car. As you can see, I stand out like a bloody lighthouse, even alongside the oncoming headlights. In most cases, that'll reliably make you something to avoid, though in this case, Mrs. Gadget is fighting the not inconsiderable temptation to floor it and claim on the life assurance. So at the end of all of that, which of these gadgets would I say is the best? Which one should you buy first? Well, I tell you what, I think there is one clear winner, and it's the Connect XR seat post suspension, because, well, despite the fact that it was the most expensive gadget I tested, it is the one that your arse is going to thank you for every time you go for a ride. And if you're a 60-year-old man like me, your prostate will probably thank you too. In second place, well, I think that has to go to the Fidlock smartphone holder. It's absolutely genius. I love the way you can just slap your phone onto the handlebars like that and it sticks like a bloody limpet. That's just fantastic. Then in third place, well, there's really not much more than a fag paper between them. We've got the trigger bell here, which is certainly the best bike bell I've ever had. It's just the right amount of ding to alert people without scaring them into the gutter. And it's very easy to break and ding at the same time. So that's a definite safety benefit there. The Fiziki rear view camera, well, I tell you what, I like this thing more and more every time I use it. It's just so reassuring to see the juggernaut bearing down on you from behind. At least you can throw yourself into the hedge. And then finally, the ProViz 360 reflective jacket, which may not be to everybody's taste, but I tell you what, if you come home from the pub late at night on a cold, wet, dark winter's evening, it's just so reassuring to think that nobody's ever going to run you over if you're wearing one of these. So there we have it. If you'd like to watch a review of a slightly illegal e-biking gadget, you might like to watch my review of the Speedbox 2, which I did a couple of years ago, but they're still selling them. I'll put a link over there somewhere. Otherwise, till the next time, I've been Arlo Guthrie. Bye-bye.